Not every ability in Pokemon is created equal. While some can absolutely make a Pokemon work, like Intimidate or the many powerful signature abilities, others, well, they're nothing to write home about. I'm not even talking about abilities that are detrimental to the Pokemon that have them, like Emergency Exit, Slow Start or Truant. Yeah, these are bad abilities, but they're not useless or pointless. They have a use. The use is just to either nerf a Pokemon that is purposefully made stronger to account for it, or create a unique kit befitting of the Pokemon in question. I'm talking useless in all aspects, from gameplay to competitive to even the lore, so to speak. And I think you can divide these problematic abilities into two categories. Those who suck in combination with a specific Pokemon, and those that are just terrible in general. Let's start with the second category, and the one that used to arguably be the worst offender of them all. For 6 long generations, this was without a shadow of a doubt the most useless ability in the entire series, I would say. Illuminate, learnable by the Starmie line, Lantern line, Watchog, Volbeat and the Shiinotic line. In battle, it did absolutely nothing, which I guess is technically better than an ability like Slow Start, but it also makes it a lot more pointless. And outside of battle, it had the effect of increasing the wild Pokemon rate by 100% when first in the party. Nowadays, due to Gen 9 ending random encounters altogether, Illuminate has an in-battle effect, preventing the lowering of one's accuracy and ignores the opponent's evasion. Not otherworldly, but definitely not bad, a far cry from the tragedy that is more wild encounters. When would you ever want that? Who has ever played one of the older Pokemon games and thought, man, I wish there were more random encounters right now? There is a reason repels are always in high demand, and even if you like running into random Pokemon to fight against, I still doubt you wish there were more. I guess that technically it could shave off seconds when trying to find a certain wild Pokemon, but come on, that isn't worth it. Hell, a speedy Pokemon to quickly run away with is probably more useful at the top of your party. That said, the ability that guarantees you can flee from battle is also not exactly stellar. Runaway is learned by too many Pokemon to name, but loses its novelty extremely quickly. It's really only somewhat usable in the super early game. Since you can only run from wild Pokemon battles, it is completely useless in trainer battles, and has honestly also kinda lost its purpose in the modern Pokemon games, since being stuck in a battle is a lot less of a common problem when all the wild Pokemon just roam around rather than surprising you randomly in the grass. And then there is also the added angle that as the game progresses, any Pokemon with decent speed or just generally a higher level than the local wild Pokemon will probably be able to flee at a decent rate, rendering Runaway completely pointless. If this had been exclusively an ability for weak early game Mon, I could see the purpose, but names like Dodrio, Rapidash, Feevil, Aipom, Pachirisu and more have no business having it. It's way too common spread for how pointless it is in 90% of the cases. A notable early game Pokemon who doesn't have Runaway but does feel like it would be a decent fit is Yamper, and that's because Galar's favorite pet has his own unique, nearly useless ability called Ball Fetch. Has anyone ever been so poor in a Pokemon game that you needed your Yamper to chase after a missed Pokeball? I don't think I ever have, even when counting pre-Gen 8 games. While money can occasionally be tight in the early game, that is also the phase where your capture attempts fail the least, because early game Mon have high catch rates, so I don't get where Ball Fetch comes in. Obviously it was designed to give Yamper its own unique dog related ability, but they could have at least made it a bit better. As it stands, it's basically a worse pickup, because that at least works without having to miss your capture first. Funnily enough though, Ball Fetch isn't even the worst version of pickup. I would say Honeygather is. This is Combie's signature ability and is essentially a clone of Pickup, where you don't get random items but instead honey. In the Sinnoh games, I think that is quite cute enough. You can actually use honey there, but in every other generation it is terrible. Honey does virtually nothing in those games. Yeah, it triggers wild encounters, but I just talked about how useless more random battles is. Most modern games encourage you to sell it, but it's worth nothing either, so what's the point of all this? It also does nothing in battle, to add insult to injury. Then again, it's not like doing something in battle is a guarantee to be useful. I mean, you cannot deny Tangled Feet has a purpose and that it's beneficiary too, it's just incredibly situational, and even in a correct situation, it's still not stellar. Targeting Pokemon with the ability while they are confused halves the accuracy of your moves. So many problems here. First of all, Confusion is one of the most annoying and least reliable statuses thanks to its random nature and the fact it's not so easily afflicted on yourself. Secondly, the ability only works during the state of Confusion, which makes it less of an actual boost and more of a lifeline during a bad situation. But then, Accuracy halved is not that great. Sure, it can come in useful in a pinch, but I think an ability should be more useful than what Tangled Feet currently offers. Now, had it also prevented damage from confusing yourself, we'd have something here, but now it just feels mostly useless. In the same camp, I would put abilities like Forewarn and Anticipation that give you a heads up about what kind of moves your opponent has. I guess you could put Frisk in this category too for spotting items, but I think that being able to tell a held item is much more useful than a move. After all, most of the time, items can truly be anything. Moves are much more predictable. Oh, my Wish Cache just told me your Sceptile has a super effective move. Better switch. I guess with Forewarn it doesn't have to be that obvious, but most of the time a Pokemon's most powerful move is a stab type move, so there's still not much use in learning what it is. Not to mention that Pokemon in general doesn't give you too many tools to change your strategy based on the information you learn here. All you can do is switch your mon out really. It's not like you have this myriad of options now that you know a bit of what your opponent is capable of. One of my personally most disliked groups of abilities are those that rely on the moves of opponents, but then only work in specific scenarios that are very unlikely to happen or matter. Take for example Water Veil. This ability prevents getting burned, pretty useful, but it's only lured by water Pokemon, which are obviously strong against fire type attacks, so lucky burns are very unlikely to happen, and since there are 0 Pokemon here with attack stats worth hindering, it's not like they'll be targeted with burn via like Will-O-Wisp or something either. Leaving this ability super unlikely becoming useful. The same applies to Steam Engine, the signature ability of the Colossal line. This massively boosts speed when hit with fire or water type moves, which are pretty much the worst types to get this effect with. First of all, who out there is hitting a rock fire type Pokemon with a fire type move? The switch in is the only time I can ever see that happening, otherwise it's flat out never gonna occur. And a water type move, sure, yeah, that is 100% happening, but Colossal is 4 times weak to water. Chances of it surviving a direct hit to even get the speed boost to begin with are pretty low. So in practice, you have an ability where one half of it will never trigger, because of your opponent never doing it, and the other half also never triggering because a fainted Pokemon can get a speed boost. Whoop-de-doo. Okay, these abilities I would say are pretty much the worst of the worst, although there are also plenty that only work in double battles and aren't even that great, like Plus, Minus, Power Spot, Healer, etc. But I feel like those are a tad too obvious to include here. So I instead want to focus on cases where the ability is perfectly fine, or serviceable at least, but the Pokemon that gets it creates a situation that is utterly and completely pointless. For example, Stunfisk. Its second available ability is Limber, which prevents paralysis. You get the problem, right? Stunfisk, an electric ground type, has this ability. I get that in Gen 5 this kinda made sense. Back then, electric wasn't immune to paralysis yet, and ground types in general aren't. You're just immune to electric type moves, but not Stun Spore for example. But starting with Gen 6, electric types became immune to paralysis across the board, meaning that Limber now does absolutely nothing. It's completely pointless for Stunfisk to still have this today, but since Game Freak haven't bothered to fix this for 4 generations on the bounce now, I doubt it's coming anytime soon. I mean, the Fan Rotom issue has been around even longer than that. When Rotom's different forms were originally introduced in Platinum, all of its different appliances still had the typing of the original Rotom, Electric Ghost. This was changed in Gen 5, at which point Fan Rotom became Electric Flying, yet retained base Rotom's Levitate ability, which of course was then completely useless. And considering Rotom to this day only has one ability, no second or hidden ability, this one stings all the more, you can't avoid it. Then again, some Pokemon give you options on paper only. Delibird has 3 possible abilities: Vital Spirit, Insomnia, and Hustle. Those first 2 are useful, but they do the exact same thing. Both Insomnia and Vital Spirit prevent Delibird from falling asleep, which I guess is fitting for a Sana Pokemon, but that doesn't change the fact that surely one of the 2 should have been changed by now. Hustle boosts its physical attack in exchange for lower accuracy, which is decent, but definitely would have worked better if Delibird's special attack wasn't better than its physical attack. The difference isn't too big, it's a mixed attacker, but still. That is actually a more common problem though. Hustle is also one of the possible abilities for Togekiss, who is undoubtedly a special attacker, and so has no use for an ability boosting its physical attack. The same is true for Pyroar and Moxie. It's as if your Pokemon has no ability at all at that point. And that sentence also applies to Metagross and its hidden ability, which is Light Metal. This halves the weight of the Pokemon, which can be useful in fringe situations when facing weight-dependent moves, especially for a mon as heavy as Metagross. Only one problem: Metagross is so heavy that even its halved weight is still so high, weight-dependent moves hit their absolute max. Meaning that in practice, Light Metal doesn't alter the damage taken from moves like Low Kick or Grass Knot even a tiny bit. Makes the decision for Clear Body a lot easier, huh? A more light version of this is Jellicent having access to the hidden ability Damp, which prevents damage from self-destructing moves like Explosion and Self-Destruct. You know, the kind of moves only 4 of which exist, and the 2 most widespread ones are Normal type, which can't hit a Ghost type like Jellicent to begin with. Then there is Mind Blown, Blacephalon's signature move, so I don't think you'll be facing that too often, but if you do, it's a Fire type move, which is also not very effective, so on Jellicent, Damp essentially protects you against Misty Explosion. And only Misty Explosion. That isn't worth it. Now, I said in my intro I wasn't gonna talk about abilities like Slow Start that are detrimental on purpose, but what about accidentally detrimental abilities? Surely those are fun, right? Like, why is Stall, of all abilities, Sablei's signature ability? There are absolutely Pokemon that benefit from always going last, even ignoring Trick Room and all that, which is what Stall does, but Sableye isn't one of them. It's way too frail for that. I can kinda get it in Gen 4 when it was introduced and Sableye had no weaknesses, but today, in a world where Fairy exists, this is completely useless. I think the original idea was for Sableye to get this objectively bad ability and then use Skill Swap or something to give it to your opponent, befitting the trolly prankster nature Sableye has. But in practice, I would always suggest embracing your prankster nature even more and just using Prankster. And finally, throughout this video, I have constantly referred back to older gens, and it's clear many of these hiccups hail from there, but if you thought we were past that era and modern games wouldn't create situations like this, you're wrong. Cue the most recent Pokemon game, Pokemon Champions. This game has a slightly different way of handling move availability, with it not having levels of course, but instead just a long list of moves you can learn. And that creates a weird situation for Aerodactyl. One of its standard abilities is Rock Head, which prevents recoil damage, an absolute blessing when you want to go wild with moves like Takedown, Double Edge, and well, that's it, because for some reason Aerodactyl doesn't learn Head Smash despite it being a rock type move, but okay. At least it has those normal type moves in the main games. Because in Champions, Aerodactyl learns 0 moves that cause recoil, leaving its ability Rock Head completely useless. A brand new one, fresh from the Game Freak offices, so the idea of abilities as pointless as this is not going anywhere. But what do you think the most pointless ability in Pokemon is? Share it in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a like, subscribing. If you're also interested in either the Mario or Fire Emblem series, you may want to check out my other channels, Pichupedia and Nagapedia. Links are in the description. For now, thanks for watching and enjoy the rest of your day.